Well, hey, everybody, this is week 9, our last week of our summer series. I hope you've had a great summer with us. And just a reminder, each week we've been taking an Old Testament story. And just like Jesus revealed to those disciples on the road to Emmaus, that he was the fulfillment of those stories, we're looking back at these stories and seeing how Jesus fulfills them. And that's what we're here to see, but not just in a way that informs us, but a way that transforms us. And so this week we're going to look at the book of Ruth, and it begins with everything falling apart. So let's jump in. The story begins with everything falling apart. A famine drives a family from Bethlehem to a foreign country, and there the father dies, and then both sons die. And so there are 3 widows left, Naomi and her 2 foreign daughter-in-laws, with no husband, no income, and no future. Now, in that world, a widow with no man to provide for her was as vulnerable as a person could be. And so Naomi heads to Bethlehem, empty and bitter, telling her daughters-in-law to stay with their own people. But one of them, Ruth, a Moabite, an outsider, a foreigner to the people of God, she refuses to leave. She says, "Where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." Now, back in Bethlehem, poor and overlooked, Ruth gleans leftover grain just to survive in the field of the man named Boaz. And Boaz turns out to be a kinsman redeemer. That's a relative with the right and the resources to step in, to pay the price, and to rescue a family member who has lost everything. You see, Ruth could not save herself, but Boaz was willing and he was able. And so he pays the price and takes Ruth, the outsider, to be his wife. The empty woman is filled, the foreigner is brought all the way in, and we read that and love it as a tender story of loyalty rewarded. But of course, this is never the whole story. A kinsman redeemer had to be one of us. It had to be a relative, willing and able to pay what we could not pay. And that is exactly the language that Luke pours out over the arrival of Jesus. Before Jesus is even born, Zechariah sings that God has come to his people and redeemed them. When the baby is brought to the temple, the old prophetess Anna sees him and speaks of him to everyone, looking forward to the redemption of Jerusalem. The Son of God became one of us, flesh and blood, stepped into our family and paid a price that we could never afford. And notice who gets redeemed in the story. It's a foreigner, an outsider with no claim on the family of God. No gospel loves that detail more than Luke's gospel. It's the gospel of the Samaritan and the tax collector and the sinner and the lost. It's where Jesus looks at a despised little man up in a tree and says, "Today salvation has come to this house, for the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost." Now, here's the ache and here's the hope. On the road to Emmaus, the grieving disciples told the stranger, "We had hoped that he, Jesus, was the one who was going to redeem Israel." They didn't realize that they were saying it to the Redeemer himself. Their eyes hadn't been opened yet. The one who had just done the very thing that they'd given up hope of. So you could not redeem yourself, but your Redeemer was willing, and your Redeemer was able. And he has brought us all the way home. So as we wrap up our time this summer, I want to leave you with one last question. You are not on the outside looking in, no matter who you are. You have been redeemed. You have been brought into the family. And so where do you still live like an outsider when Jesus has already made you his home, his own? So sit with that and sit with all 9 of these stories. You can go back and review them again if you'd like. But in every story, Jesus is the one that the story points to. He is the story itself. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And so let's follow him.